What is a subtle sign that someone is really intelligent? They can ask really good questions. I worked with a lad who was very like this. He could make any conversation really intriguing and thought-provoking, often causing people to reconsider their perspective and position. He was a raw manager that could defuse any situation, helping people mend bridges and resolving issues because he could get both parties to compromise and put aside resentment. He had IQ and EQ to go a lot further than the role he was in, but he was happy, and maybe that is another little tidbit of intelligence. They aren't afraid to say they don't know the answer to a question. It's weird because I've met some remarkably intelligent people who are insecure and or socially awkward, like, not being rude, but legitimately may not be neurotypical, and they don't fall under any of the categories that are being described in this thread. Most of these comments seem to be based around people who are intelligent and humble, which, although incredibly admirable, is not necessarily a guaranteed intersection. It seems like the focus here is more on people who are both socially and conceptually intelligent. But there's plenty of very intelligent people who are in one or the other categories. As an example, a fair amount of the really intelligent people I've met rarely ask questions or carry much of a conversation at all. They make mental notations of information they've digested and then go and learn more about the concepts independently. Or if someone is struggling to keep up with their concepts, they can get bored and move on. As nice as it is to think that intelligence is backed by social skills, it's frequently not. A primary example is that Stephen Hawking's work was slowed down tremendously when he to explain concepts to the people he worked, because it frequently would take him longer to adequately explain the concepts than to come up with them. But because his physical limitations, he had to go through the process anyways. I'm not saying that intelligent people are unable to explain concepts or unwilling to ask questions. But if they feel that work could be done more efficiently by the doing independent work or research, they may not say much at all. Their learning patterns and socializing skills don't necessarily dictate pure intelligence. Sometimes it's just a marker for being both intelligent and being able to effectively read others socially apt. Although this is just my personal experiences, others may have differing ones. And statically speaking, if most folks upvoting feel that how willing someone is to admit lack of understanding or ability to expand on complex concepts simply is a better identifying factor for intelligence, it probably is. I'm guessing I just had animalistic personal experiences so far. Edit. Wow, this got much larger than I expected. Y'all are awesome and have some rad insights. I can't respond to everyone, but some excellent points were brought up and I wanted to get them into the post. 1. The question said subtle. This is 100% correct. I guess when I was thinking, I just felt that a style of intelligent person I had frequently met wasn't being shown, but someone nodding and researching things later isn't a very subtle cue. So I can see why the responses would be addressing a more vocal intelligent person. 2. Some intelligent people are egotistical. This is something I've found to be accurate. And this is 100% in my opinion and based on experiences taking with friends, colleagues. But a lot of that, I think, has to do with these folks being picked on standing out when they were young. Their intellect made them stand out, and so they started using it as an armor for why they didn't fit in their words, and sometimes they led to an ego because they lack self-confidence in other areas, and so they doubled down on feeling proud of their intelligence. This isn't good, but I think we all have our, well, maybe not our own self-preservation mechanisms that we learned young, and sometimes it takes a while to grow out of them, if ever. Mind jumps between humor being overly logical and dissociating cause feeling shirt but don't feel good. 3. Intelligence manifests very differently from person to person, and trying to discern intellect is very challenging. Some of the smartest yet most socially challenged people I know work with people who understand them at a pretty fundamental level and can be excellent at arbitration between them and folks who get lost in one-on-one conversations. Having intelligent bridge people is also incredibly important, because a brilliant STEM engineer might have trouble figuring out how to get funding from a banking institution. But a less conceptually intelligent, more socially apt STEM colleague can make an exceptional mediator to get help finance a joint venture. The cool thing about people is we can work together to shore up each other's weaknesses and make some rad shit. 4. There's some really smart folk in this post, and it was lovely learning from and chatting with all of you. Thanks. I feel like there are also very intelligent people who do have social skills, but overthink interactions so much that they are afraid of doing something wrong or hurting someone by asking a too personal question and therefore act out more awkward. They can genuinely consider an idea which opposes their worldview without necessarily accepting it. I've got a bone or two to pick with Aristotle, but I can vibe with his misquoted "It is the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought and not accept it." Duck. That's the worst thing about my roommate. I try to have discussions with him, and he just says things like that'd never happen, and refuses to think about it beyond that. Dude doesn't understand the hypothetical realm. Massive alien forehead. They spend time thinking before asking a question, or answering one, or replying to a comment, or commenting on a reply to a comment. Some of the smartest people don't comment at all. When they explain something, they make you feel intelligent. Explaining something complex is simple terms. Knowledge is so vast that they can talk about in the easiest way for someone else to understand. I once was hired by a college as a tutor for other students who were having trouble with courses they found difficult, but I had absorbed pretty easily electronics stuff mostly. The department head who hired me said something along the lines of, "Pay isn't much. You won't make enough to buy more than a pizza or two a week. But you'll learn stuff about what you teach you never realized you needed to know." You never really grasp a topic until you can explain it clearly to someone else. He was right. They know when their knowledge ends and say something to the extent of, "I don't know and anything else I say on this topic is ignorant speculation." Favorite line I got from a professor that made me genuinely realize I can have my own thought was, "That's a great question that I don't know, but we need to talk about." Conveyed immediate interest, but kept a same professional knowledge base which allowed me to explore my ideas with her. It really showed me what discourse is all about. These are my favorite kinds of people. Anytime I ask a question and the person both doesn't know the answer but also becomes intensely interested in exploring possibilities. They admit to changing their mind about something. I'm not sure if this marks brilliance, but the inability to change your mind when presented with new evidence is absolutely ignorance. People who use analogies to explain concepts to others. It's a form of code switching, and integrating concepts on the fly is a clear indicator someone is both socially and conceptually intelligent. Jim, would you prefer a nature metaphor or sexual metaphor? Jim: oh, got nature, please. When two animals are having sex, one of them, you know what you are gonna want to hear, the sexual metaphor. They effortlessly communicate complex concepts in a simple way. My father-in-law is very smart. Went to MIT Caltech. Founded and sold several businesses. Published books that are still in circulation. Holds several patents and now is working in the immunotherapy space. Anyway, I'm just a typical Midwestern state college grad. And the things I've learned about cancer and the various treatments from him are amazing. These are technical, medical, biological concepts that I could learn if I read 100 books. But he can somehow explain them in such a simple and relatable terms I feel like I really understand. It's a gift of genius. I think what's important is some people are deathly afraid of simplification. Because there are always experts that will tell you you're wrong. But simplification is incredibly important in explaining concepts to people. You build rules that are applicable 75% of the time. Then you teach the exceptions. So many people out there start with the exceptions first, and it's so clear they've never had to formally instruct anyone in anything. Speaking as someone that gets roped in to explain every board game to others, even the ones I haven't played. They can follow the plot of Kingdom Hearts without needing any line graphs or charts. They are curious about everything. To be intelligent you need to be knowledgeable, and you can't be knowledgeable if you are never curious. You can memorize a bunch of random facts and repeat them. That's knowledge. But knowing what to do with that knowledge, how to apply it, how to make sense of it, is what I think real intelligence is. Richard Feynman captured that mindset perfectly in his book. Talking to people as if they are intelligent at their level, and without being condescending, or even letting on that it's lower than their level. I used to work with a Dr. Tom Howard, and the day I realized he was a genius was the time he guessed every single condition a patient of mine had, based on minute pieces of information about him. Admitting when they're wrong, and being willing to learn from mistakes. I feel like this is more the wisdom stat than intelligence. I think intelligent people are more willing to calmly discuss, rather than argue. Like, you explain to them why you disagree, and they listen to you, and ask further questions about your viewpoint, before offering a different perspective, as opposed to an unintelligent person, who would just resort to insults when other people disagree with them. They let idiots have the last word, because they realize that trying to argue any point with them is futile. You know the saying, the bigger man walks away from a fight. Same kinda thing with intelligence. Never argue with idiots. They will bring you down to their level and beat you with experience. Mark Twain. People who are genuinely curious about the world, ask questions, and listen to others instead of just waiting for their turn to talk. Also, they don't view education as just a means to get a job. They say they love learning, and they learn something new every day. Then they listen more than talk. Yes. And they ask questions about new topics that come up in conversation, rather than seem threatened that the conversation left their domain, and their questions are thoughtful. They apply knowledge from one realm into a new and relevant situation. For instance, one person described a situation might have been on Reddit where they were a new assistant in an academic research lab and fixed a snag that stumped all the senior researchers, including the professor. The team was trying to video record their project using a strobe light, and their footage wasn't working as planned. When no one else made progress at diagnosing or solving the problem, the most junior individual spoke up and suggested that the strobe could be out of phase. They remembered that video typically records at a rate of 24 frames a minute second, thanks for the correction, and explained that, along with suggesting a change to the strobe's flash rate so it would coincide with the recording. This worked, and it really raised up that individual's reputation within the group. Inwardly, they were almost embarrassed about the source of this knowledge. They had a gaming hobby back in high school and had taken some video footage of that and discovered the standard frame rate while playing around in editing software. But they remembered that detail years later and realized it made a difference in a completely different context. That is intelligence. Humor. I think that truly funny people are often very smart and cognizant of the different ways an idea can be humorous on several levels. They also know their audience. I think the difference between, say, a Jeff Foxworthy and a Dave Chappelle and a Bo Burnham is their audience and their interests. They're logical, and they find out more information rather than believing something right away. They listen really well and seek to understand when they listen. There is also this lovely thing I like to call intelligence by association. I'm a prime example of this. My small rural town seems to think I'm a genius simply because I can read at a level above your average 4th grader, when in fact I'm a high-functioning moron. They don't open up threads like these hoping to find comments that fit how they see themselves. Yeah, I see you looking through these comments. They understand what you're saying before you're even done with your explanation. They don't brag about it. You shouldn't ask Reddit about intelligence. You can honestly just tell by their vibes, the way they compose themselves, talk, write, think, explain, etc. What I find the most interesting is that intelligent people, in my experience, are more likely to be less cold fact driven and more theoretical and creative. For example, if an intelligent person were to read a certain stat, fact, idea, etc., they are likely to have very interesting theoretical extrapolations. My friend qualified for the Mensa membership, and whenever we talk, his Mensa always strays towards very interesting outlooks. He has certain ideas that I would never have even thought about. It's actually very fun to talk to intelligent people. The way they are able to absorb information like a sponge and apply that information is very eye-opening.